once again. Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world, even more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, in Kansas, in Georgia, in Missouri, in Texas, in Arkansas, Chicago, Illinois, in California, in New York, in Pennsylvania, in Canada, Fiji Island, Mexico, Spain, in Africa, Kenya, Pakistan, Zambia, to the United Kingdom, to our brethren in Australia, and also to our brethren in Malaysia and in Indonesia, and to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad. Greetings. May the good Lord bless you, my dear brothers and sisters. This is our special episode number 14, just an hour exposition of prophetic study as the last final warning message just prior to the close of provision. And let us continue to our subject, Revelation 11, verse 2. And one of the message that had been left by B.T. Hotep before he died, just 2 years. According to the card file in 1953. So I would like to begin again in this reading. It says, it is possible that the 42 months of Revelation 11 verse 2 occupy an entirely different period of time than the 1,260 days mentioned in Revelation 13. For Jerusalem did not begin to be trodden underfoot in 538 AD, but was completely taken and destroyed in 70 AD. Or in other words, the Shepherd's Rod is plainly telling that one of the common understanding when we mentioned 1,260 days or 42 months. One of the well-known historical event is the Dark Ages from 538 AD to 1798 AD. But the Shepherd's Rod is telling us that during that time, and 538 AD, Jerusalem were already completely destroyed in 70 AD. So, Revelation 11 verse 2 cannot be applied during the dark ages. But how about the time when Sistius surrounded Jerusalem? That is exactly 1,260 days when they began the siege in 66 AD. And that is during the Feast of Tabernacles. Then, on 70 AD, it was destroyed by Titus. So that is exactly 3.5 years, or 42 months, or 1,260 days. But why is it that the shepherd's rod plainly telling us that that could not be the perfect fulfillment of Revelation 11 verse 2? I think the first reason is that whatever the prophecy recorded in the book of Revelation, it was foretold beforehand that the fulfillment is hereafter. And it was recorded in 96 AD, by which Jerusalem was already completely destroyed. Now, let's read the statement here in 2SR. 2SR page 191. Therefore, the word hereafter in Revelation chapter 4, verse 1, means from the time of the vision, pointing forward to 1844. So, whatever the fulfillment recorded in the book of Revelation, it will be fulfilled from 1844 onwards. And in track number 5, on page 32, it says, the statements which must shortly come to pass. Revelation 1 verse 1. And I will show thee things which must be hereafter. Revelation 4 verse 1. Go to say that the revelation is given with the one particular object in view of showing the things lying not behind, but ahead of John's time, with reference being made only incidentally to the past, in order to lay the necessary foundation upon which to build the future. Track number 5, page 34. So, the voice of inspiration is plainly telling that God told the prophet that the fulfillment of his vision is hereafter, meaning from the time the vision was written, it must be fulfilled onwards, not backwards. And it was written 96 AD. The vision was shown by God to John in 96 AD. So it cannot be applied on 70 AD because that is already backward from the time the vision was given. So I would like to read again the statement recorded on the card file. It says, the holy city is still underfoot and will be until the Gentiles drive out the Gentiles as predicted in Zechariah chapter 1 verse 21. Not any part of the city will be underfoot after then, at which time the kingdom, the church purified, is set up there. The truth concerning the 42 months during which time the holy city is trodden underfoot by the Gentiles is therefore not completely revealed and had better be left alone until God makes it known. Now, let us now focus our attention to the prophecy on Revelation 11 verse 2. BTOTF says that concerning Revelation 11 verse 2, it was not yet completely revealed in his lifetime. And that was written 1953. And he died in 1955. And many Davidians violated the injunctions, saying it would be better that such prophecy be left untouched than to engage in private interpretation. The shepherd's rod is admonishing that we need to wait the appointed time when God himself will make it known. First of all, such prophecy will not be fulfilled unless it will be revealed first. It says here in track number 2, page 12, never could it have been fulfilled and not been revealed. Never could it have been fulfilled and not been revealed. Track number 2, page 12, plainly indicating that to make known the prophecy before its time is worthless. It says here in 1SR Packet Edition on page 9, any thinker knows that to have made known the truth of it before time would have left it as vain, valueless, and ineffective. You see, brothers and sisters? It is valueless and ineffective. So, such prophecy must be revealed to the people intended. And for sure, the people intended with such prophecy, they are the living saints, the saints that will no longer to taste death. And it is illogical that such prophecy will be revealed to them by which they themselves will die first before the fulfillment of such predicted event. It is valueless and ineffective. But it is even more illogical and impalpable inconsistency if to the very people by which the prophecy is originally designed, they will be left in total darkness concerning about it. I remember the statement in 1SR Packet Edition, page 58. It says, "But now at the appointed time, He Himself reveals their significance to the very people for whom they were originally and especially designed." And in track number 5, let's read. Track number 5, page 111 and page 112. It says here, "The occupation of the promised land by the Gentiles today was typified by the yesterday's Gentile occupation of it. And when ancient Israel returned from Egypt to the land of promise, the times of the Gentiles in those days were fulfilled. Likewise, now when antitypical Israel, the 144,000 guileless servants of God, are sealed and taken to Mount Zion, there to stand with the Lamb, the times of the Gentiles in these days will be fulfilled." Track number 5, pages 111 and page 112. In that reading, very plain, the particular object in view is the 144,000 guileless servants of God. And accordingly, the Gentile occupation in the promised land is typifying the Gentile occupation in the past, while God's people were still in Egyptian bondage. But when God's people returned from Egypt to the land of promise, the Gentile occupation at that time ended. Although we know that ancient Israel, according to Prophets and Kings, page 19, did not fulfill God's purpose. They had not been able to drive out all the Gentiles in the land of promise. Instead, they had been gradually contaminated with the customs and practices of the heathen. And there was great apostasy in ancient Israel, by which God driven them out in the land of promise. But we are now studying the perfect and final fulfillment of the prophecy, by which, according to the spirit of prophecy, all the covenant promises made by Jehovah to His ancient people will be fulfilled to the spiritual Israel, to the faithful spiritual Israel, the 144,000 living saints. It says here in Prophets and Kings 7:14, these witnesses for God are numbered among the spiritual Israel, and to them will be fulfilled all the covenant promises made by Jehovah to His ancient people. He did not say some of the covenant promises. No. All the covenant promises made by Jehovah to His ancient people will be finally fulfilled to the spiritual Israel. In Prophets and Kings 7:20, it says, Then it is that the redeemed from among men will receive their promised inheritance. Thus God's purpose for Israel will meet with literal fulfillment. Thus God's purpose for Israel will meet with literal fulfillment. What a wonderful promise, brothers and sisters. That all such promises will be fulfilled to you and I if we will be faithful. And we are living in that generation, brothers and sisters, the last generation of men. Not only from ancient Israel, but even from the days of Adam. It says here in Prophets and Kings 7:31, it says, To us who are standing on the very verge of their fulfillment, of what deep moment, what living interest are this delineation of the things to come. Events for which, since our first parents turned their steps from Eden, God's children have watched and waited long and prayed. Fellow pilgrim who are still amid the shadows and turmoil of earthly activities, but soon our Savior is to appear to bring deliverance and rest. To bring deliverance and rest. Prophets and Kings, page 731. And that is why that is the most joyful news to all God's people to learn that predicted time of our returning to the homeland has actually come. It says here in 1 TG 25, page 4, and still more joyful should she now be to learn that the time for her returning to God and to the homeland has actually come. 1 TG, number 25, page 4. It is the most joyful news by informing us that our returning to God, we need to return to God in order for us to return to the homeland. And that predicted event is now on the very verge of fulfillment. And this is the very message that we are proclaiming. I remember the statement in 1 TG 37, page 10. It says, their divine calling to awake, however, reveals that though the time of deliverance has come, yet they are in deep spiritual sleep, ignorant of these good tidings. Brethren, hope that this message would be an encouraging message to all who are listening and viewing this program. I remember the statement here in 1 TG 33, page 3. It says, this afternoon, we are to study Isaiah chapters 31 and 32. In these chapters, we shall see the cause of Zion's captivity by the Gentiles. But it says, their time limit and antitypical Israel's deliverance. Ponder deeply, brethren. There is time limit. Remember, when God's people is in Egyptian bondage, even before they were in Egyptian bondage, there was already time limit. And the time limit is 430 years. When God's people had been in Babylonian captivity, even before they had been in captivity in Babylon, there was time limit, and that was 70 years. How much more to the last generation of men? There must be time limit. Brothers and sisters, given by God. Or in other words, there is always a given time. Here on, I would like to read the Great Controversy. The Great Controversy, page 323. It says, another kind of evidence that vitally affected my mind, he says, was the chronology of the scriptures. I found that predicted events which had been fulfilled in the past often occurred within a given time. The events limited by these times were all once only a matter of prophecy and were fulfilled in accordance with the predictions. Now, I would like to read 1 TG 43, page 22. I love so much this statement. 1 TG 43, page 22. Now that you plainly see the signs and the time of our redemption, and of the day of God's vengeance against unrepented sinners fast approaching, you are urged to make ready to sigh and cry against the abominations, to receive the mark of deliverance, to be among the firstfruits. Now you can happily and understandingly seek the kingdom of heaven and its righteousness, and assuredly know that the material things of life should not predominate over the spiritual, that they shall be added unto you. Matthew 6 verse 25 to 34. Heaven therefore expects you without delay to definitely and openly take your stand on the side of truth. Now that the year of His redeem is come. Brethren, it is a prediction. Behold, is predicting the event. But such prediction, there must be fulfillment. So the announcement of such prediction must be carried out. Now that the year of His redeem is come, that the signs of the day of vengeance are here, now is the opportune moment to make your decision. You cannot afford to procrastinate, for says the Spirit of all truth. Wherefore, as the Holy Ghost saith today, if you will hear His voice, harden not your hearts, as in the provocation, in the day of temptation, in the wilderness, when your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my works 40 years. Wherefore I was grieved with that generation. 1 TG 43, page 22. And that's why the shepherd's rod made it so plain, saying, shall this returning to the homeland will be unexpected? 2 TG 31, page 3. Shall this returning be unexpected? Or shall the Lord first send someone to prepare His way? Of course, it is not unexpected. The same as in ancient Israel. God used Moses to inform the people, it's time to go home. It says here in answerer number 2, it says in page 6, answerer number 2, page 6, it says, lest they refuse to take heed to Moses when he should come with the word that the time had arrived for them to go back home. Moses informed the people that the actual time, the predicted event, has finally arrived for them to go back home. How much more in the last generation of men? God will not allow that they will be in ignorance. God will send first antitypical Elijah the Tishbite to inform God's people that our returning to the homeland has finally arrived. And it is a very joyful news. Brothers and sisters, it is a very joyful news to all the constituent of the 144,000 living saints. I remember the statement here in 2TG 21, page 12. It says, I would like to read 2TG 21, page 12. God brings her not into her vineyard, not in the promised land, but into the wilderness, into the lands of the Gentiles, there to speak comfortably to her and to help her reform. After this comforting meeting takes place, she is to have her vineyards from thence and the valley of Achor for a door of hope. There she is to sing and rejoice as in the days of her youth, as in the days she came out of Egypt. It says, the valley of Achor is the door of hope. Where God could be able to speak to His people comfortably, that is figurative speech. Brothers and sisters, God will speak unto His people comfortably, meaning that is the time when there is already a responding chord to the hearts of each individual, illustrated by the prodigal son. In track number 4, on page 25, it says, finally, after going through her prodigality, track number 4, page 25. Finally, after going through her prodigality, she will penitently return to her first husband, the Lord. To hasten her return, the Lord overtakes her in the wilderness. You see, to hasten her return, the Lord overtakes her in the wilderness, thus fulfilling His word. Therefore will I return and take away my corn in the time thereof, and my wine in the season thereof, and will recover my wool and my flax given to cover her nakedness. And now will I discover her lewdness in the sight of her lovers, and none shall deliver her out of mine hand. I will also cause all her mirth to cease, her feast days, her new moons, and her Sabbaths, and all her solemn feasts. What does it mean by the Lord overtakes her in the wilderness? First, I would like to read first the experience of ancient Israel. It says here in answerer number 2, page 6. It says, next to draw them there, he brought thereabouts the 7 years of plenty, followed by the 7 years of famine. Answerer number 2, page 6. Whereupon he sent word to Jacob that Joseph was yet alive. At the overjoying news, there sprang up in the father an irresistible desire to see his son. This and the life-taking hunger upon Joseph's brethren compelled them to remove into Pharaoh's land of plenty, where they live like kings. So they live like kings. Then it says, not purposing, however, to leave them there forever, the Lord did not let their living continue as pleasant as at the first, lest they refuse to take heed to Moses when he should come with the word that the time had arrived for them to go back home. But he brought about another saving providence, this time permitting unbearable hardship to befall them, so that when called, they would respond gladly. So slaves they had to become, and still worse, they had to be bereaved of their male children, and then mercilessly driven with cruel lashes upon their backs to produce ever more bricks. So what is the lesson? The lesson is clear. That those people who are satisfied in this world, they will not long God's kingdom. It might be that they were longing God's kingdom with their lips, but not with their hearts. I think that is in timely greetings. It says, those who are satisfied with this world, they will no desire to get out of it. Because you live as kings. Right? So let's read here in 2TG number 11, page 9. It says, this is very natural. Those who are satisfied with what the world gives do not care to get out of it. Here you see why it is easier for a camel than it is for a rich person to get through the needle's eye. Matthew 19:24. Those whose only difficulty is in trying to get richer, those who are deeply engrossed with this world's goods, cannot take time to eat of the master's supper. Here fits the age-old saying, almost saved, but entirely lost. Here is vividly seen that to accept one truth, but to reject the next, profits one nothing. The last call to the individual is what counts most. Brethren, there will be no neutral position. the message that we are proclaiming, it is either from God or it is either from the devil. But if this message that we are proclaiming cometh directly from the throne of heaven, the fresh message, the present truth under the seventh seal, and you are rejecting this message, all the message that you have will profit you nothing. Now, let us go back to our main subject. The 42 months prophecy. Revelation 11 verse 2. And jot it down. All the passages that we are going to read. And then study closely. Because the statement given by the shepherds are saying, we need to wait until God makes it known. And if this is the divinely appointed time, no one can hinder it. The shepherds had made it so plain. In track number 5, page 86, as a matter of fact, trying to obscure the light on any other Bible truth will in no way darken or doom it, but only darken and doom himself. Trying to obscure the light on any other Bible truth. For example, this message. Trying to obscure this message will in no way darken or doom it, but only darken and doom himself. Track number 5, page 86. Now, let us go to Luke 21. So let's read again the statement. In Luke 21. So let's read Luke 21, verse 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For this be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, unto them that give suck, in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And it says, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. This is the very verse quoted by B.T. Hawthorne on his card file. Recorded here in Luke 21, verse 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. And in track number 5, it was link or connect to Revelation 11, verse 2. Now let's read track number 5. Track number 5, page 110 and 111. It says, Revelation 11, verse 2. But the court which is without the temple, leave out, and measure it not. For it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. What is the holy city mentioned here? Jerusalem. According to the shepherd's rod. Right? We already read in the card file of B.T. Hawthorne. It says, the city mentioned here is Jerusalem. And this is the particular verse that B.T. Hawthorne says that it is still unfulfilled. Revelation 11, verse 2. What is the first reason why it cannot be applied in the time when Sistius surrounded Jerusalem? That is exactly 42 months. Exactly 1,260 days. But why is it cannot be applied as the fulfillment of Revelation 11, verse 2? First, according to track number 5, page 32, the vision of John cannot be applied backward from the time the vision was given. It is made only incidentally to lay the necessary foundation to build the future, but the fulfillment must be hereafter, after the vision. The vision was given 96 AD. But the occurrence when Jerusalem had been under siege, that was 66 AD. And then in 70 AD, it was destroyed. But that is the type. Or in other words, the groundwork. Track number 5, page 34. Fulfilled prophecies are seen, therefore, to be employed by the Scriptures as groundwork to that prophecy which is still unfulfilled. And why is it that it cannot be applied during the Dark Ages? It is no longer literal 42 months, no longer literal 1,260 days, but that is symbolical, because that is 1,260 years from 538 AD to 1798. But why is it that it cannot be applied during the Dark Ages? Although it is already included, because hereafter, after 96 AD, but Revelation 11 is under the sixth trumpet. The sixth trumpet did not as yet commence to sound in the Dark Ages. The sixth trumpet sounded in 1833. And the next reason is that there is no such historical event during the Dark Ages that they surrounded Jerusalem. And B.T. Hotep says, therefore, Revelation 11 verse 2 was still future. It is still unfulfilled, but the absolute fact is that it was not yet completely revealed in his lifetime. But I don't believe that we need another publications to understand Revelation 11 verse 2. The statement, hear ye the rod, Micah 6:9. According to Leviticus of the Bedouin, it says, there must be only singular fulfillment of that predicted event. Leviticus of the Bedouin, page 4, and to call attention to the singular fulfillment of Micah's prophecy, the Lord's voice crieth unto the city, and the man of wisdom shall see thy name. Hear ye the rod, who hath appointed it. Micah 6, verse 9. Singular fulfillment, pointing only to one inspired writer, B.T. Hotep. And this is the Shepherd's Rod Publications. And I think that is misleading and erroneous to say that there are another inspired writings after the Shepherd's Rod Publications had been completely written. The Branch Davidian, they considered the writings of Ruden, Bin Ruden, Loy Ruden, and with all others as included in the inspired writings. Well, that is their own prerogative. We need to exercise absolute freedom. The Bayesian movement also included the writings of Bingham as included in the inspired writings. Still, that is their own prerogative. There must be an absolute freedom. And you can listen to them. And through their explanation, if you think that the evidences they offered is very strong, that the writings of Ruden are also inspired writings, then accept it. But with myself, I already investigated all the writings of the Branch Davidian. And I found out in my own investigation, I found out that it contradicts to the writings of the Shepherd's Rod Publications. And also, it cannot stand with the Shepherd's Rod Publications. Because in Zechariah chapter 4, there are only two major prophets in the last days that interpret the Bible, and that is Sister White and B.T. Hotep. That is very plain, as explained in track number 6. So what I am saying, brothers and sisters, that although it was not completely understood, it was not completely revealed by God to B.T. Hotep in his lifetime, but without any doubts, 100%, all the explanation, the necessary information concerning the 42 months prophecy is already recorded in the Shepherd's Rod Publications. It is already there. That statement I would like to read in 11 symbolic code. It says here, number 3, page 8 and 9. The message which was meant in due season in 1844 was the truth Sister White brought, the judgment for the dead. And it was this message which was represented by the oil that was in the lamps when the 10 virgins first went in waiting for the bridegroom to come. The oil that was in the vessels of the 5 wise virgins must represent an additional truth, something other than what was in the lamps. It is this additional truth which is to supplement the 1844 truth and thus supply sufficient light to the time of the coming of the bridegroom. And what must be this additional truth be? It must be the truth of the judgment for the living, the last message. What is the statement? Sufficient light. The word sufficient, brothers and sisters, can be easily understood that all the necessary information were already written in the Shepherd's Rod publications. Although it was not yet understood by B.T. Hodder, we need always to remember, as stated in the Great Controversy 344, that even the prophets who have been favored by God with a special illumination of the Spirit did not fully comprehend the message that they had written. The same with Daniel. The same with John the Beloved. Look at Ellen G. White. She has no knowledge at all concerning the premillennial kingdom. The only understanding of Sister White is that the millennial kingdom, the 1,000 years in heaven. But she has no knowledge. She did not understand premillennial kingdom. But in her writings, there are many proofs, evidences in abundance explaining the premillennial kingdom. But the writer himself, she did not understand that there is a premillennial kingdom, although she herself had written many of them concerning the premillennial kingdom. So that statement in Manuscript Release, Volume 7, 417, it says that each of the ancient prophets spoke less in their time, that their prophesying is enforced for us. It must be directly applied to all the prophets who died, including Sister White and B.T. Hodder. That all their prophesying is enforced for us, the last generation of men. And to all Shepherd's Rod believers, full-fledged Shepherd's Rod believers, we will show to you that these 42 months prophecies, there is no other publication that can clear the 42 months prophecy, only the Shepherd's Rod publications. And the statement in answerer number 1 on page 49, saying, and the light may come solely from within the message itself. I would like to read again. Answerer number 1, page 49, and the light may come solely from within the message itself. Whatever light concerning the 42 months prophecy, it will come solely within the Shepherd's Rod message itself. Because the shepherd's rod publications are in abundance. Sufficient information, sufficient light bestowed by God. And that's why we can say, thank God. We have both the chart and the compass. I think that is in an Adventist Activities Research Committee. Saying, but thank God, we have both the chart and the compass. And that is the Shepherd's Rod publications. It says, I would like to read page 28 and 29. Brethren, this alone is enough to convince any open-eyed Adventist that the denomination is certainly at sea without chart or compass. But thanks be to God. To God be the glory. But thanks be to God that the rod has found both the chart and the compass, and that we can have them back if we want them. When ancient Israel journeyed from Egypt to the Promised Land, at evening, they have the pillar of fire. But during daytime, they have that cloud. And that is the chart, illustrated by the chart and the compass. And we can have both the chart and the compass if we love the Shepherd's Rod publications. This is our chart. This is our compass to the Promised Land. We are about to enter the Promised Land, brothers and sisters. And we will show to you how precious the message recorded in the Shepherd's Rod publications. And we are now on the very time by which our long and trying journey. This is the last reading, and I will continue tomorrow. It says here in 1 TJ 37, page 18, Awake, awake, my friend, to the fact that our captivity, our sorrow, and our mourning are about over. We are never again to go through them. He who devised the sea can indeed make us free. In page 20, 1 TJ 37, page 20, it says, Yes, my friends, since our long and trying journey is at an end, let us, as God's arm, give earnest heed to His awakening call. Now at the end of our long and trying journey, let us allow nothing to hold us back from obtaining the two things that are to make us stand forever, God's salvation and His righteousness. Thank you very much for listening and viewing this program. And please continue watching. And maybe tomorrow, if God will allow, if God will permit, we will gradually show to you how clear the message given by God through the Shepherd's Rod publications. That our deliverance, brothers and sisters, is at the very doors. Let us return to God wholeheartedly, and then God will let us free. God will deliver us. And we will be in His loving arms to stay there forever. And all our sadness and gloominess will be forever be passed away. Thank you very much. We love you, brethren. May the good Lord bless you, and have a beautiful, wonderful evening.